Okay. When you remember, if you're, oh yes, have you got a question? Yeah.
What are you doing when you have a depression and you are in your depression and you will you will be wider? You're just laying on your pillow and sleep so much, and you can't do anything.
Yeah.
What are you doing with the recovery situation about this?
Yeah. Well, look, I used to get like that. I used to get stay in my bed for weeks with depression, and the nurses, they try to get me up all the time, but the nurses try to get me out of bed, and but I had to be in bed because I felt like I had no skin. So if you feel like you have no skin, bed is a very good place. Okay, very good place to be. Not walking around like this. And sometimes we need time to be in bed, I believe. I don't know if that's your experience. And I think there is a lot going on inside us when we were doing this, even though we look blank to other people. And I remember I learnt some important lessons lying in bed looking blank, that I was understanding some things. So I don't know if that answers your question, but but I think part of, you see, recovery doesn't start when we get out of bed. Recovery is happening when we are in bed. Yeah. Yeah, yeah. Yeah. So I think it's important that we see, and sometimes other people, they get frustrated because this person is just lying in bed. But we all get up eventually. Yeah? We get up. We get up when we're ready. When I got up when my skin was back on again. Okay? So, yeah. One more question? Yeah.
How do you, when we consider that due to World Health Organization, that in the year 2020, approximately 20% of this our world population would suffer from depression. Yeah. Do you think that a kind of individualism in our society, in our Western society, can provoke a disease like depression?
Yep. Yes, I think it's hard to... It is hard to know whether there are more depressed people around or whether the pharmaceutical companies are creating depressed people so they can make a profit. But I think perhaps there may be more depressed people around, and I think we are perhaps more vulnerable to these states of despair and loss of meaning in life when we have weak communities. And I think there are many more people living alone, a bit isolated from their families and friends. And I think this probably does feed feelings of despair and feelings of emptiness in a lot of people. Yeah. Yes.
I'm a long-term schizophrenic, and this talk about recovery, it seems a bit distant to me, because I've asked my psychiatrist if I could reduce my pills. I've now been on pills for 22 years, and there seems to be no way out of it, and there seems no way to go back into normal society. It seems as if social recovery is possible, but apart from that, no recovery is possible for a long-term schizophrenic?
Right. I believe that I can't really answer your. I can't really talk to you, answer your personal question. But I believe that you see, if we focus on, do I hear voices or do I have beliefs that are disturbing? If we focus on, can I live the life that I want to lead? This is the big question. We don't, the experiences that people call symptoms, we can manage those. Sometimes they just go away. But really, the big question is, can I live the life I want? And if you are not living the life you want, then what is getting in the way of this? And then it's learning, it's discovering what's going to be the thing that's going to help you to live the life you want. For some people, taking medication helps to live the life you want. For some people, it makes it impossible. So we all have to come to our own decisions about that. But you are a worthwhile human being, and you don't deserve to be excluded. You deserve the same treatment as any other human being. And part of recovery is believing that we are worthwhile human beings. Okay. Right. Can we go on to the next slide? So, if we were to take seriously what people say helps their recovery, how would we change the system? Can you go on to the next slide? Oh, this is just a cartoon, and it says, why Neanderthal man became extinct. And this man says, I don't know, it just seemed easier when we went hunting. There's a big flow chart on the cave wall. And the guy says, oh no, but Og assures us that this will improve efficiency and keep us ahead of the Cro-Magnons down the valley. So this is a great sort of example of how we get complicated with our systems and how it's good if we can keep it very simple. Next slide. So this is the 8-level destination picture that I want to give you an outline of this afternoon. Now we start at the bottom because at the very bottom of a recovery-based system is our beliefs about madness. And then we go right up to the systemic framework. So, next slide. So, this is probably one of the most important parts of a recovery-based system because all our systems are based on our fundamental beliefs about the nature of the problem we are there to respond to. In our current psychiatric system, the view is that madness is pathological. It makes people incompetent and unreliable and dangerous. And there is a belief that the experiences we have while we're in these states are not full human experiences. They are very inferior human experiences. They go in the bottom. They're at the bottom. You have a hierarchy of human experiences. Well, madness is right in the bottom drawer. Okay? Now, we have built a system that is based on those sorts of beliefs. And in order to create a recovery-based system, we need another set of beliefs. Do you understand what I mean? Yeah? Now, the kinds of beliefs we need to have are that madness is a full human experience. It's legitimate. Now, we all know that that madness, for those of us who've experienced it, can be very distressing. It can be very disruptive. And at times it can put us in precarious, difficult situations. So I don't want to romanticize madness, but I was just as human when I was crazy as I am right now, just as human, okay? Now, then if it's a full experience, a legitimate experience, that means we can derive value and meaning from it, okay? And also in a recovery-based system, we need to show that there are pathways through it. So this is the kind of beliefs we need to have about madness if we are ever going to have any hope of creating a recovery-based system, because it drives everything else that happens in that system. Okay, next slide. Now, remember I showed you the slide of the fading life chances, and I said we need another story. Well, in the peer support that I do in New Zealand, we show people this picture here, and we tell them, forget about the fading life chances story. Here's another way of looking at your story. And it's called the hero's journey. Now, there was a man called Joseph Campbell who looked at all the myths and the stories and even Hollywood movies. And he said, all these stories have a common pattern to them. And he said that pattern was the hero's journey, okay? And he said, what happens in the hero's journey, and we have modified this for people with mental distress, you leave the world that you know, the world of well-being. And this is a universal human experience. We go and we get separated, and we don't really like it, but we don't know how to go back. Then things get worse, and we get into a place where we're completely lost. And then we get to the darkest, most difficult place. And in the myths and the legends, this is when people are trying to slay the dragon. You know, the hero just about dies. But then some helper comes along to help the hero get out the other side. And once the hero's outside that very dark place, the hero then says, I've learnt something new. I may be scarred, I may have just about died, but I've learnt something new. And then they go back to the place. It's usually a long, arduous journey back to the world that they know. But they go back and they have some new knowledge and some new wisdom to give to the world. Now, imagine if a psychiatrist sat down with you when you went into services, and instead of giving you the story I told you about before, the fading life chances story, imagine if they gave you that story. That would make you feel good, wouldn't it? Yeah. Now, and so we ask people to consider their own story according to this pattern of the hero's journey. Okay, next slide. Now, on the next level up in the destination picture, we have the purpose of services. Why do services exist? In a recovery-based system where people view madness as a legitimate experience, the services would be to support me to lead my own recovery, to be in the driver's seat. And they would encourage hope, and they would make sure that I had my self-determination. if you go back to that chart where people said what helped their recovery, if you were designing a system that supported people's recovery, you would have to have many different sorts of services. Not just pills and pillows and all that other stuff, but you'd have to have a whole range of different sort of services. And social justice and social inclusion and equal participation in society. Services need to be as concerned with that as they are with how I'm feeling within myself. Okay? So, next slide. Now the people, when we talk about systems, we often forget to talk about the people in them. And yet, systems are just full of people, aren't they? That's all they're made up of. And how would we expect people to be or to behave in a recovery-based system? Well, mad people, we would be expected to take an active role in our recovery. It would be anticipated that we would learn, that we would be able to negotiate what we want, and that other people might have something to learn from us. But so often, even today, we're just passive recipients. We're just told to be obedient and swallow the pills. Okay? Well, that's no way to, that's not a recovery-based response. Families. Now, I don't know about Denmark, but in my country, many families, they feel angry and they feel at a loss and they feel really terrible. They would be supported and educated to enhance recovery. Okay? And then the workforce would be compassionate. In English, we have a saying, on tap and not on top. That means available. You can turn the tap on and it's available, but you're not, it's sort of like you're an expert resource, but not an expert authority. So it's about about being equal. And in communities, there has to be zero tolerance, no tolerance of discrimination. Okay. Any questions about that? Anyone want to say anything? Okay. We'll go through these here. Now, the elements of the service. Well, you would want to have open doors, because in Denmark, do people try and get into services and people say, oh no, you can't come here? Does that happen a lot? Yeah. So, and in some places, it's possible just to go to a service and they will help you, whether they think, whether they've diagnosed you or not. They'll just help you. So, but of course, we want doors out of services as well, because you see, it's so hard to get in if you want to get in, and then they keep you trapped in there, so you can't get out. So we want doors out as well. Then, what sort of environments would a recovery-based service have? Well, there are far too many hospitals still. New Zealand has fewer hospitals than just about anywhere in the world. We closed down all our psychiatric hospitals in the 1990s, and we have acute wards attached to general hospitals, and we have far too many of those, and I think they should be shut down too. I think hospitals, you have places where you get more than 20 or 15 people in them, you'll get abusive practice and neglect happening. It's just almost a law of institutionalisation, that if you put a whole lot of people together in one place, you will get bad things happening. And so I think we need small community-based places where people can go in crisis, and much more support for people at home if they want to stay at home. And let's get rid of... And do you have rehabilitation hospitals here? Well, it's an, you know, there's an English word, oxymoron, contradiction in terms, yeah. So I mean hospitals where people stay for a long time. No, well that's good, because there are still some of those in many countries. Yeah, okay. Right, and then language. You know, the language that, the official language in mental health is very disparaging, very clinical, very down on people who use services. And we need to honour the language of lived experience, okay, our language, okay? That needs to have as powerful a place as any other sort of language. And then power, bottom up. Now, I'm an advocate for having no Mental Health Act. There aren't many people who share my views, but I will tell you why. In most mental health legislation, they say we will treat people against their will if they are a danger to themselves or to others. Okay. What happens in the physical health service if I have a serious illness and I don't want treatment? What do? They don't force me, do they? What happens in the criminal justice system is, no, they can't get the police onto me or lock me up until I've committed a crime. Is that true in Denmark? You have to commit a crime before the police come and take you away and take you to court. Yeah? In psychiatry, they can just think you might commit a crime and they can lock you up. Now, on both counts, I think this is discrimination. Why should a section of the community have separate legislation just for them that makes the threshold, that lowers the bar, makes the bar lower for the state to come in and force them than it is for other citizens? I think that is wrong. And I think if we are going to think about how we treat people without their consent, then let's do it on an equal basis with other people who use health services. I think that sounds fair. I bet you there would be far less compulsory treatment going on in mental health if we had legislation that covered everyone. So, any questions about that? Because that's controversial. Anyone got views about this that are different? Yeah.
Yeah, I will have to say I don't agree with that. I think you are equating somatic and psychiatric disease, and I'm not sure you can make that comparison. There are differences. I mean, when people are psychotic, you can compare that to a cancer patient who doesn't want treatment. I think when a person is psychotic, it's not responsible not to help the person, even if, although he says perhaps, I will not, I'm not ill, don't help me. So I have to say I don't agree with that.
Well, I'll tell you, there's an interesting study that I read recently where they looked at the competency of people in physical hospital and in the psychiatric hospital. And they found that in both sorts of hospitals, about 30% of people lacked competency to make treatment decisions. How many people in the physical hospital were forced to take treatment? None. How many people in the psychiatric hospital were? Probably more than the 30%. In fact, it would be probably twice as many as that. So yes, I mean, psychosis is different from cancer, but the most important thing is that we are all human beings and we need to be treated as equals. And I really, you know, we spend so much time in mental health trying to prove, how are these people different from other people? We focus so much on that, and yet, fundamentally, we are all human beings. And I think separating us out from other people does not actually help us, and just helps to maintain our social exclusion. I'm not saying that, you know, some people say we should never ever do anything as a state to, you know, when people are in a bad way. I'm not saying that, but I think we should be done on an equal basis with other citizens. If you have a competency test for people in the physical health area, just apply it to people in the mental health area. Right. Okay. So let's go on to the next one. Responses to individuals and families. Now, look at that list there. Which response is the one that people get the most? That you can reliably get whether you want it or not? Which sort of service there? Can you see it? Yeah?